Welcome to the Be Ready podcast, a space for parent, community, and classroom educators to come, learn, and share so that children are strong academically and that they develop into successful, thriving adults. Here are your hosts, and welcome to the conversation.
So hello, and welcome to another episode of the Be Ready podcast with Deshawn, Jania, and Camila. And today we have a special guest with us, Dr. Tiffany Scott. So we use this podcast as a platform to build community between parent, classroom, and community educators on topics related to academics and child development. Specific to parenting, we often challenge ourselves and our listeners to be their child's first teacher and advocate. We share stories and resources to help us all rise to that occasion. In doing so, we also recognize how difficult it is to fully show up for yourself and your family. And that on any given day, we all have so many balls in the air that we are juggling, right? There's work, parenting, caregiving, cooking, cleaning, being a partner or a spouse, drinking water and exercising, okay? All of the things. So we invited Dr. Tiffany Scott on with us to talk about a topic that I know so many of us can relate to, and that is parental burnout. But before we dive into the topic, let's start with an introduction. So, Dr. Tiffany, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is, again, Dr. Tiffany Scott. I am married to Frank Scott, and we live in Lake County. We've been here for, I would say, a little bit over 18 years. We are both educators. My husband is a coach, and I'm an administrator currently for the district, director of professional learning, a passion of mine. And prior to that, I started off in the classroom working with students with behavioral challenges, and then a coach, then assistant principal and principal for some time to where I am currently now. And education is a passion of mine, and serving stakeholders of education is a passion of mine. And I have two children. Together we do, Frank and I, and we have an 8-year-old who is a person with autism, and we have a 13-year-old who is probably fartly on the other end, very high achieving. And I don't say that to brag, I just say that to give you some context for my family dynamic, and just knowing that you're working with, two very different learning types. And so that's really about me. I am just, and I'm a child of God. My faith is important to me, and I'm just really passionate about education and about serving.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm very excited. So Tiffany and I are sisters in faith. We attend the same church, Rejoice in the Lord Ministries. And every summer, our church puts on a 4-session series about different topics that people experience, maybe like finances, prayer. There's always one on parenting. And this summer, we got to hear from Tiffany and her husband, Minister Scott. And so they facilitated this workshop on parental burnout that really resonated with me. So, Tiffany, can you define that term for us? What is parental burnout?
So, by definition, it is a state of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion, specifically related to the chronic stress of parenting. And I think there's more of us who fit that definition than we really realize. I know for me, just having a community to be able to have a conversation with other parents of like mind, of like faith, and of like principles, because we know not everybody parents the same way. Just kind of learning more about that term. But parental burnout is more than stress, and stress is kind of how I like to look at it differently. Is that stress is something that happens here and there. That's part of our natural life cycle. All of us will have stress at some point, but it's temporary. Parental burnout, if you would think about it in terms of it being more long term and having other effects, physical, mental, as well as emotional exhaustion. 60% of our parents reported being burned out. And so those, that condition is compounded by different life experiences. So for example, The number of children that you have, young children that you have in your home will increase that. If you are a parent who's dealing with a child with a mental or emotional disability, right, that increases. If you have any type of substance issue in the home, it increases. And any undiagnosed mental health scenarios will contribute to that. So, and, I think a term that's become just really comfortable in our society is anxiety, right? Like, I'm anxious. You hear people all the time reference, and words have power, right? And so, but anxiety is also one of those things that really can increase a parent's chance of having parental burnout. And one of the things that you pointed out was that those statistics are glaringly different for females and males. And so it says a lot about us in our home. So of the women, that 66% that were women, 68%, right, were women, right? 68% of women say that they were burned out in that group, and 42%, right, of men. Like that's telling, right? And so, and when you look at, like, you just think about your girlfriends, your home life, like everybody, like it seems like the women are always running on 10, right? Like, I know for me, I'm like, and I think some of us wear that as a badge of honor, as if, like, if we're constantly busy, if we're even a term, you guys remember the term? I don't know if I'm dating myself, but like booked and busy, or right?
Yes.
Booked and busy. It was like, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because right, if you have a business, you want, some activity happening, but there is a balance to all of it.
I think that's true. That's one of the things I was thinking about, is like what elements of our culture either make parental burnout worse or can help it. So when I think about helping, I think about, people who do mindfulness and, or lean into their faith, like, or hurting it. I think about, like, okay, booked and busy, or having FOMO, or for women, like the idea that you can do it all,
Yeah.
or even for Black people, like, I grew up thinking, and I don't know that it was directly taught to me, or just somehow it was an early message that you gotta work harder, be smarter, be faster. So I wonder, like, how those things carry, with you and impact burnout.
100%. And those things were explicitly taught in my home, right? Like, there was a standard that if your peers were here, you had to be here, right? Because being a person of color, you got to stand out. You've got to be twice as good, right? To prove yourself that you're worthy of any type of recognition or title. So, those things carry with us into adulthood. And we also then perpetuate those, right, with our children. And I think sometimes, because of those societal norms, we don't always recognize the symptoms of being burned out, right? Because, some of them do mirror being stressed, but, some of those signs are emotional distancing yourself from your children, extreme exhaustion, a reduced or a lack of enjoyment for parenting, headaches, sleep, appetite, those things, you're seeing changes in those, anxiety and depression, and the feeling of being trapped in your scenario, in your life situation. So I definitely think that the societal norms that you brought up, Deshaun, really perpetuate those. And that way we feel like I should be doing it. So if I start to feel some of those symptoms, like I should be able to do this, right? Like, we can do it all. We can have it all, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody about like that, like the strong Black woman stereotype, but also like I can hold my whole family together, and like putting all of that on your back, and almost like, but I don't want to do that
Right.
because it doesn't feel good. But there's also this balance of like, can I not put it all on my back, right? Because if I don't put it all on my back, if I'm not doing all of it, then does it get done? Does it not get done? And I think that like adds a level of stress too, of like, if I don't do it, if I don't keep everything together, then who is going to? And it sounds like those statistics were crazy because I think those 68% of women are the ones that are like, oh yeah, I gotta like make sure that everything is done. And if it's not, then I look like a bad mom or like I'm not a good partner and those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely in that statistic group because I think that like even of myself. And it's if I am doing all of these, sometimes I'll sit back and be like, dang, that was a lot. Did that. And it makes me like feel like I want to do it. Like again, look at all the things that I can do. And so sometimes like I hold on to that as a form of like it's my independence. I definitely hear the if I don't do it, who will? But then on the flip side of that, sometimes it's very much like, yeah, I did that. I can do it. I can conquer the world by myself. And then I get burnt out and tired and I'm like, I just need a day. Can you take the kids?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective that you brought up as one that I don't know that like I've really discussed, but where there's a sense of exhaustion from just doing all the things, but then there's also like a personal badge of honor, right? From also being able to do that. And I think that might be part of the conflict. You know what I mean? Like, where is the fine line? And I wonder if the solution is really also finding other ways to have that internal badge of honor as a woman in our own identity, something that's not, you know, fully contingent upon how much we give to others, but some other way to measure that. And it's certainly not like, you know, negative to be proud of the things that you're able to do as a parent or a wife. I take pride, you know, in being a good wife and being, you know, a good mother. And I don't know that the things that I equate to being a good wife and good mother is always like good for me mentally, right? Because nobody really said that I had to do all those things to be a good wife or a good mom. So I think maybe we put those things on ourselves. And so maybe just reevaluating too what that means, like what, you know, what's prioritizing some things. Because, you know, there are some days we're superwoman and we're like, yeah, like, you know what, I did that. I today I did that, right? And then other days you're like, the same challenges look you're facing the next day and you don't have the energy or the bandwidth
right
through that. And then all of a sudden you feel there's a self-doubt, the guilt, you know what I mean? And so it becomes like this cycle. So
yeah, I know exactly what you mean because I want to wear the cape, but I also don't.
Right. Right. Like, I don't.
I do, but I don't, right?
Right.
I wonder too how much what was modeled for us or not modeled for us plays into it. So in March, we had a conversation about the women that we admired so much. And one of the things Jania mentioned, or the question that she asked us was, have you seen these women who you admire so much rest? And we're kind of like, ooh, I don't know. So I know that I jumped into being a wife and a mother trying to do all the things that I saw my mom do. And I was like, very quickly, I am not Alice. I cannot do this. But our circumstances were different. And I didn't account for that. I also didn't account for the fact that by the time my mother had me, she had already been married for like 20 years. And, you know, so it's just a different dynamic altogether. But I wonder how we carry what we received, what we saw, or what we did not get that we're now compensating for into who we are now and how that contributes to our burnout.
Yeah, that's actually one of the root causes of parental burnout is, you know, unrealistic expectations that either were put on us or that we've idealized. We are of the generation that we're like, we want to do for our children what our parents didn't do for us, right? And so with that comes unrealistic expectations of how to get there. Not everything, but there are some pieces in that. The constant caregiving, the age gap between children, like, you know, I've got a little bit of an age gap with mine. And then there's also the reverse when you have children doorstep too, like, right, there's that. And I think, you know, families, women who don't have a village, lack of support, like that is, you know, that increases it. And even just your temperament, like the temperament that you were raised with and you believe that you should or shouldn't have as a parent, and even just your work environment can add to those things, right? Like I complain sometimes about aspects of education. I imagine that most people do with, the job that they have. But what I will say about education is that it does provide some flexibility, right? We've got summers, we got every weekend off, like there are some things to be said about that. And when you think about other positions today, like there are some people I remember when we were going through, you remember we were coming off of like COVID, there were some women who didn't have the luxury of saying like, I'm not coming in. You know what I mean? Like if something's going on, I gotta go, or else I'm not getting paid. Not being paid means no bills being paid, or
Mm,
right. And so those are very real scenarios. And so just a variety of things can really contribute to that.
yeah. It's interesting that you said like we are the generation of doing the things that our parents didn't do, right? Or giving our kids those things.
Mhm.
And so that like really resonated with me, and just my boys are really busy and are in all of the things. And I don't think there are a lot of things that we're like, oh no, you can't do. Like you can go to all the after school sports and join all the clubs and all of these things, because I also like know the importance of that, but also that was something that I didn't have the luxury of doing. And so I think sometimes about like how do we do all of this? Like if you looked at our schedule, it looks kind of wild, because we're all being kind of pulled in different spaces. And we decided like, oh yeah, we definitely can't have another child because there are two parents, and so like each of us can take one of the kids and go. But then community is so important in that as well, and like making sure that luckily like I have my mom and my mother-in-law that are able to help. Like we've built some like friends that are able to support as well, but there's still so many things to do. But I think that dynamic between giving them everything we didn't have but also making sure we're building community, is a really like strong strategy in helping with the burnout and just like identifying who those people are. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what you mentioned, you hit two really important things to preventing parental burnout. One is building like a community, right, that you can rely on in times when you need others to tap in or tap out. Like that is one of the main things that can really help with that. And then the other thing that you also talked about is prioritizing, right? Like I like checking your schedule to see what's feasible, what's not feasible, right? Like some realistic expectations. So, like, I may have the desire to do all these things, but can we do all of these things, right? So, I think that's really important. And I don't think that that's always easy, especially when you're in the thick of it. And those kids are looking at you with those little eyes saying that they
Yep.
want to do it, and it's tough, like they pull on your heartstrings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they
They
do.
do. So there is a parental burnout self-assessment. We will share the link to it. There are 10 questions, and you rate yourself 0 to 4, from not at all to very much, on how you are experiencing these statements that are given. So prior to this, we all took the assessment and wanted to kind of talk through our scores a little bit.
Okay,
So
I'm excited about that. I
yeah, I think I'm
can't wait to
mildly
hear now that I
excited.
have some context for you and your families. I'm so curious.
Yes, I'm mildly excited about this part. Um,
Mildly.
because okay, so out for our viewers, the results are grouped into 4 different categories. So 0 to 10 points is no or few signs of burnout, 11 to 20 points, mild burnout, 21 to 30, moderate burnout, and 31 plus, severe burnout. So I landed with a 25 in moderate
Oh,
burnout. But here's the good but not so good thing about it is actually I think it was higher when I took it this summer.
Okay.
okay. Okay.
So I feel like I am, lowering the burnout piece.
Okay.
But the questions were interesting for me. So a couple of keywords that came from the questions were that I do feel guilty about working and parenting, balancing that,
Mm,
feeling overwhelmed and exhausted. But I also think that I am doing a good job as a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I think what led to maybe the decrease in the scores, I think I pulled back from work a little bit. So I don't know that I necessarily feel burned out with my kids, but I think having to juggle like the work and the kids and the household is very overwhelming for me and leads to that.
Yeah, I would
so
agree
that
with that.
You would, oh, sorry, go ahead, Camila.
I was saying I would agree with that, for me as well. With what Deshaun said, having to juggle is where I feel a lot of the guilt. So I don't know. I scored
Where
mildly
did you
burnt
score
out.
miles? I was gonna ask.
I was scored at an 18, but I was sharing, like, if I'm only, according to the test, mildly burnt out, why do I feel so burnt out? Like, I feel very, very burnt out. And thinking about like where I scored higher versus where I scored lower, like I feel very overwhelmed with like the work and the parenting. But I also think I'm a phenomenal parent. I am amazing. And I know that. So I scored high there, but it feels like and then thinking back, like I find joy in parenting my kids, but then not in moments where I have to say, oh, we can't go outside right now because I have to finish doing this work. Or like Lucas, my oldest son, will come to me and be like, we probably can't go outside right now, right? Like, not even asking, can we go outside? Just, we probably can't go out, right? So, like, that makes me feel so guilty. Like, so that's where I am, and I do end up having to work a lot outside of the 7:30 to 4:30 hours of my administrator position.
Yeah, so I think that's tough, right? Like, I think so. I'm gonna say this. I think that had I taken, so a couple months ago, I had a heart attack and I ended up in the hospital. I had zero blockage. It was 100% related to stress. I had so much stress that it caused a dissection in one of my arteries. And it really came, I think, from stress. And I think had I done the assessment, I would not have been all the way up because I thought I was doing things. I was doing proactive things to kind of help me. I started walking in the morning. I was consistent with my daily devotion. I was getting through my checklist um, of getting things done, and I was feeling like a pretty good parent. Like I was making it happen, even if it came at my cost of exhaustion. And so, like listening to you, Camila, as well as Deshaun, it makes me wonder though, like you're talking about like when you share about your rating and how you're feeling, and I know the topic is parental burnout, but it makes me wonder for you two, like, where is your time coming as a woman? Like for just you and your identity, because that is the space that we get refilled. I know that we have wonderful moments as a parent and we feel so good about that, connecting with our kids, and that is necessary, right? But that isn't the same tank filled, like it doesn't build the tank in the same way. So my question to you ladies would be like, how are you doing with like caring for Deshaun, Camila, like Jania, like how are you guys caring for yourself?
You
Great
paused, so I'm
question.
feeling like that wasn't rhetorical.
Was not.
No.
Was not.
I think there's definitely space there to grow, for sure.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
So
For sure.
like more than in like Camila, like I have a little bit of an urgency, like where I want to lean into you a little bit more just because of all the things and like feeling overwhelmed, like something else is happening, right? Like so like when
I
you start to feel like that, your neurological system is already heightened. There's physiological things happening that you're not even aware of. So here's what I would say is that I would just say start small, like, but carve out some time daily for yourself, whether it's, 15 minutes of devotion in the morning and then, or coffee, just a warm cup of coffee or tea or whatever in the mornings before everybody gets up. And that's what I ended up having to do because there was no time. Once the kids were up, my day was committed to either that or to work. And so I'm not a person who loves getting up. I'm not gonna lie, I don't. But the days that I get up in the morning and I get my walk in or my cup of coffee before anybody's saying hi to me, my tank is so full. So that's just an example. There's so many ways to do that, but I would encourage you to find a space that's just for you. And start with a few minutes and then build up from there.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely been like, it's been a work in progress for a long time for me. And I just cannot seem to find the routine or find a little space that's going to be consistent. Like, even if I get like this day, like every third Sunday on these podcasts, give me a little minute. Like, like things like that are great. But it's not something that I find consistency with. And it's something that is much easier for like my husband than is for me. And I think I feel like it comes back to like my guilt of like if I don't, then the ball's gonna be dropped. And then I feel like if I am going, then the ball's gonna get dropped anyway because I'm burnt out. So like I'm glad to hear that you also said that you're not a morning person who likes waking up, because at first I was like, waking up in the morning. I don't know
No,
about
it's
that.
real. I will
But
tell you, like the first few days were tough. But so full transparency. So I have been doing so good since May, right? Because it's nothing like a heart attack. When something major happens, like you get your life together, everything's telling you, it's understood, everybody around you is going to support. But then when that time wears off, everybody kind of forgets about that, yourself included, right? And so like this last 2 weeks, I haven't been getting up. And I noticed last week, my emotional barometer was off. I was heightened about everything, like simple communications with people at work, my patients with my children. Like, not that I blew up or anything like that, but, and even just emotionally at the end of the day, like I was over it and everyone, and that hadn't even been a thing lately. And I thought, like, what is so different? And it was like, I'm not getting my time for myself. I'm so much more mentally strong. And the thing is that really all of this parental burnout, stress, and anxiety, this all starts in the mental. And so, like, making sure that you have time to speak positive things over yourself, to give yourself grace for when your children can't go outside right now. No, they can't go outside right now, Camila, but you know what? Guess what you're going to do with them later? Guess what they get to go do? You get to go take them to all of their little clubs and activities. Like, they will be okay for not going outside, right? Like, in that moment, because you got to get something done, right? So just
yeah,
giving ourselves, being gracious with ourselves,
yeah,
I
I
appreciate. Oh, sorry,
appreciate that.
Camila.
No, I was just saying the same thing, that I appreciate that as well, because that's just definitely something that I'm working on. Grace for myself, and carving time out. Not even like for like to be around friends or anything, just space to sit by myself. And I think I need to do better at that. And I'm gonna make it work, even if I spend an extra 20 minutes in the car before I get out to go inside the house.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you mentioned just like a cup of tea or coffee in the morning or a walk. 'Cause I think sometimes I perceive that the self-care act or the self-time needs to be a long time. But what the examples you shared could be like 10, 15, 20 minutes. And I have that time.
Yeah, and it has a compound effect, right? Like you might like the more you do it, the consistency, you also get a sense of pride. Not that it should become this, but you also get a sense of pride. Like, you remember how I was saying earlier, like we want the cake, but we don't. But we also like when we're able to say, okay, well, we did that, right? So there's also something to be said about, what, I consistently took care of me. You know what I mean? So it
Mm.
also has a compounding effect for a way that actually is helping you be better for the people you have to show up for. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And that, we've all heard that, but I'm telling you, it's so true. And yeah, like it just gives back so much. And it's unrealistic to be like, not when you have kids and a family, like a husband, it's really difficult, even as a single parent, really just being like, okay, my self-care is I'm going away for a whole weekend. It's like, first off, funds, time, money, who watching the kids, who like prep, like that's not even a thing. Like sometimes, right? You've got to plan for that a little longer. But those secret getaways during the day, reading a book, I also like to read. So like I'll read a book for myself or just for me, for Tiffany, not for the mom, not for the employee, not for the wife, just me as a woman, and staying in touch with her so that she doesn't get lost.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because we've talked about like the self-care and the not having to be like huge things before, right? And I think that's something that we get like lost into. I mean, we've been socialized this way of like you don't need to take care of yourself, or if you do, it's got to be like this really big grand gesture. And so I just really appreciate the conversation going back to like it can be something small, it can be easy breezy. But it also like models for our children too, right? I think Deshaun, you had said something earlier about like, oh, are we parenting like the parents that we had, right? And are we burnt out the way that they were? They didn't know they were burnt out because they were just doing all of the things. And so hopefully by us being able to one, figure out like, are we burnt out? Where do we lie in this? And then putting some of those changes in place, like we'll be able to model that for our babies too. I didn't share my score, but I'm gonna share
I
my
was about to
score.
ask
I
you,
would love
Janita.
that.
I was waiting. You guys were having really great. It was really great conversation. So I was a 19. And I think I'm gonna echo some of the same things that Deshaun and Camila said, is that it was really hard for me on the like guilt for work, balancing work and parenting. And I got out of that. Like I just need to stop working because that obviously is the problem. Like, don't go to work. Um, but that is really difficult for me because also like being high achieving and wanting to be successful in my career and wanting to be able to make impact on like this grand scale for my entire community, but I also like have to balance that with like the people in my home and like making sure that my family is good. But that is like a hard juggle. Some of that also is like how we've been socialized and like you need this and that and all of those things. But that's definitely been difficult. And I made me think about if I had done the survey on a Wednesday compared to doing on a Sunday, if it would be different for me. Because I really enjoy the weekend. Like I enjoy the kid activities. I enjoy us being able to hang out on the couch. I enjoy figuring out what we're gonna eat and like what movie we're gonna like. I really, really like that time. And I've gotten really good at being able to like unplug.
Okay.
From like everything. And that like definitely took long. But and like there's still moments where I'm like, ooh, I should probably, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it because this, like I feel so much better like Friday evening to Sunday evening, Monday morning, where it's just like I can fully immerse in being like Jania in this space. And so it made me think about like today, like right now it's a 19, but on Wednesday, like it may be different because like the moment of feeling and just the balancing of work and all of that. So yeah, if anybody's listening, we need to figure
Can
out
I
some
have you a
way.
question? I have a question for you, Janine. Just curious,
Yeah.
just like I heard you talking about like, your desire to really make an impact or struggle like with work and everything. Do you think that perhaps is perfectionism ever an issue or thing for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. And like the overthinking of like, is this going to be perfect? Is it going to be right? How are people going to receive this? Like all of that definitely is a struggle. Um yeah, yeah. The short answer is yes, for sure.
And all of you ladies, like, how do you feel like you do with setting boundaries?
I am
Setting
getting better.
Getting better.
I'm getting better. I mean, and that's kind of like this in this season of no, I'm not going to do that. I guess I've had lots of interesting conversations with my husband too, about like setting boundaries specifically like with work and those pieces. Um, and so I'm better. I'm not like perfect at it, but I'm getting better.
Okay.
It depends on the situation for me, honestly. I have been a lot better with setting boundaries at work. If I have to do any work, like I'll keep it to like a Sunday. I'll try to keep it to a Sunday, depending on how much it is. When I'm at work, my plate is full. My plate is full. I can't do that. So let's problem solve how we can get there a different way or later. But if you want it now, I can't do it. Um, with family, I'm great at setting boundaries also. However, in my immediate family, I do need to get better with that because when I am tired, I tend to keep going. and going and going and going and going. And then I go some more. So I am working on that piece um, because sometimes I feel like I have to.
I
Burnout.
would say I'm good with setting boundaries with other people, but not necessarily with myself.
Hmm.
So I think I will just let myself go too far and do too much.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's something that I've really been working on in the work sphere because I do have a team. So like delegating more, leaning into like developing the team more. Um, but personally, um, I don't know that I'm that great at that in my personal life. And
Yeah.
not like doing for other people, but just having like telling myself no and like having
Hmm.
these really high expectations for myself because then what happens is I'm mad at myself because I don't meet the expectation, but then I'm mad at other people who I think should also be meeting my expectation that I set for myself, right? Like it gets real
Mm,
crazy. So I
Yeah.
think that is the biggest boundary is just telling myself like, girl, it's enough.
mm,
Yeah.
I think that's, and I asked that question because that seems to be a common thread amongst burnout, right? Like, even if you have boundaries for other people, you don't tend to be good at setting boundaries like for yourself. I know, like, that's something that I have certainly gotten better at. But like, we will book things knowing like we're exhausted at the thought of adding them to the calendar, and yet we will still push through them, right? Instead of just saying, you know what, I would love to do this, but I can't do this now. If you want to do this, I'm available to do this, and this. Or to tell your kids, I really know you want to go today, but today is not really an option. I'm more than happy to take you next weekend or like whenever it's a more like, you know what I mean? Even with my husband's probably one of the harder ones. I feel like I always just want to try and do for him because he does so much for the family. But sometimes I'm just done, right? And I have to remember that that moment of saying no isn't a defining moment of like how I am as a wife, as a
mm,
mother, or a friend, right? But I also have to make sure I have a balance so that I can be full, like in a whole, like those people will want me to be whole, right? And so this book that I'm currently reading, I think it's by Mel Robbins. It's Let Them Let Me, and it's so good. It's like it really just
so good.
teaches you those things. And one of the things that really just compelling to me that she said, and they're so simple, but it was like, no one's coming to save you. Like no one is coming. You have to save yourself, right? So, you know, and how do you do that? Like you do that with boundaries, right?
Hmm.
And being clear about what you want. And so one of the things I do find hopeful in this conversation is with Janaya is that hearing you say that like you really learn to have pleasure like on the weekends, like you light up like when you talk about that, you know, on the couch figuring out what movie that you're doing. So that's clearly something that's filling your cup. So we've just got to be really more in tune with the things that fill our cups and carving out space to do them.
So I have a
I think.
question. Because you brought like bringing up like the things, hearing Jania talking about like the perfectionist part of that and like Deshaun's mentioning the high expectations for yourself. I definitely rolled into that ball. Recently, my son has been having like difficulty like coping with difficult things in like when he's faced with a challenge. And it is just like a meltdown. Like, and he told me he feels like he has to be perfect. We had like whole conversations and we talk through like perfection is not like attainable. You can, you know, we can work as hard as we can and doing our best is all we can do and all the things, but it's such a mental block for him. So I'm thinking like, well, what am I projecting? Right?
Mm.
Initially, what is it? Is he picking up on like my high expectations? Is it, am I putting all my high expectations on him? Is it just for me and he's watching me? Like, how does parental burnout affect kids?
So that's an excellent question. So it manifests both internally and externally for them. And I can relate like 100% to um, the scenario that you're talking about. I'm going to be real vulnerable right now with you, because my son started having issues with perfectionism. With I mean, it was like early. I think I got the first true evidence of it. It was in kindergarten, and he had struggled with that. And so I had to do some self-reflection, honestly, to really realize like what experiences were I creating for him to make him feel like he had to be perfect and be above like reproach. And there were some things that I were doing, and even the things that I was affirming him on, like the amount of praise. Like kids are very like intuitive with like our words, our actions, and things like that. And so I think I would over like highly celebrate like his academic achievements when he shown to be like excelled in something. And there you still obviously like want to reward and acknowledge them in those things, but it really became an issue to the point where like I had some parent teacher conferences with my kid's teacher, which basically just said, yeah, he's struggling with perfectionism. And it wasn't until I think I think he was almost in second grade. And he basically, in so many words, basically let me know that I was putting so much pressure on him that, which I'm very ashamed of now, but it is our reality, was that like he didn't even feel comfortable like expressing himself to me as a parent because like just of the tight structures that we had at home. And that like was a counter everything I really wanted to achieve for him, but my actions weren't communicating that. And that was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to know that my son didn't feel free, right? Being himself and also feeling like he had to be perfect. And so I fast forward now, he's in eighth grade now, and he has no problem expressing himself, but it was because of me. I changed my actions. I changed the way I praised things. I talked to him, our conversations. I allowed him to express his thoughts on things, even if we weren't rocking with that. Because there's sometimes as a parent, you just have to say, you know what, no, we're not doing that, but I'm happy to hear you. And those things made a difference. But our burnout, I don't know if you guys realize, but this generation of students is considered to be like the loneliest generation, largely due to social media. And so this shows up for them in loneliness, them feeling neglected and abused, even though they have more access to people, you know, through social media. It shows out in and attention seeking behaviors. But mental health is a thing right now, like for our youth. I'm sure you see it too, guys, being in the school system and access to children, like it's a thing. And it's because of taking time to have those communication and also them we're modeling for them, right? We have a high percentage of adults who are anxious, right, and depressed. And so that manifests for children not knowing how to work through those complex emotions and even speaking them. Like how often and how comfortable are we with sharing with the people that love us most that we are at our peak, right? Like we feel like, you know what, you shouldn't be at your peak. We rationalize, and that's tough. So I don't know. I said a lot of things, but it can manifest in so many different ways for our students, none of which are healthy. And that's why it's really important for parents to be aware of their mental and emotional health, you know, so that they can model for them how to navigate hard times.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for this conversation, especially to Dr. Tiffany, but also to Camila and Jania. I think this was a really helpful conversation, an authentic conversation. So thank you for the vulnerability that everybody shared today. And I really firmly believe that this is something that's going to help all parents, whether you're a parent juggling, working outside of your home, or if you're working in your home homeschooling your kids or as a stay-at-home mom. I think stay-at-home parent, I think all of it was really valuable. And I know I'm definitely going to do better at the self-care and the boundaries. There are a lot of strategies that were woven throughout this conversation that I'm eager to really like pull out and think about a little bit. So thank you all.
Same. Thank you, Dr. Tiffany, for bringing this to light because I can't speak for anyone else, but I know I never really thought of parental burnout like as a real thing. Like I can say like I'm burnt out right now, but like to know that this is like a manifested thing and it is different from stress is helpful to help me recognize if I'm headed in that direction, because I also definitely don't want it to affect my kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I do appreciate the conversation. I think it's really important, like for us to just be self-reflective on our emotional state. And that starts with just caring for us first before we can care for anyone else. And we don't give enough pause to that. And the thing is that these things do manifest in stress for us. And we know that like when we're stressed, right? Like we're short with people, we're short with our kids, like our patients and all the things. And I think the lasting point I want to make before we close out is just that as women, we feel like if we're stressed, if we're overwhelmed, that has to be validated by someone else or substantiated by someone else. Like I had to have done enough in order for me to say, that I'm burnt out. And that's not it. That's not true. We don't need anybody to validate for us our emotional well-being and where we are. But we do have a responsibility that when we feel it, to take care of ourselves, because no one's coming to save us. And so I just want to encourage everybody to love on themselves, to be gracious, and make yourself a priority just like you make everyone else. So thank you guys for the authentic conversation. I really enjoyed my time, and it's truly been a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. That was the best way to close this out. Come on. Like, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.